Um, Tara, I care so much about doing good work, but the pressure to be clever and original all the time is really burning me out and making me feel low. Is it normal to feel like you're faking it even after years in the game?
Well, I've been looking at this question for ages, and I'm going to find this one really hard to answer because I feel like there's so much behind this that's not being said. That might be my psychology brain kicking in. However, there are some serious little messages between the lines, and I'm really not sure what they are. I think when it comes to this idea of faking it, and this sort of internal pressure to be clever, etc., where we're probably dealing with comparison. And again, if we come back to what I mentioned earlier on today, is comparison is a very normal thing, though it's really unhelpful. And the reality is, unless we are a robot that has been programmed to come up with new ideas all the time, it's very hard to set the expectation that everything is going to be epic all of the time, right? Like we our brain doesn't work like that. So I feel like part of this is about giving yourself permission to just take a breath and just acknowledge that you're probably being your worst critic because that's what we are to ourselves. We usually look at what we do and go, oh shit, I could have done this better, I could have done that better, or that's too much like whatever it is. Um, though when I think about artists, right? You can kind of, for the most part, you can kind of tell that one artist has done all these incredible artworks, even though those artworks are different and unique in their own way. There's like a thread between them. And so this idea of needing to have original things all the time or to be, Madonna is probably the only person that I have seen that has been able to reinvent themselves enough to remain relevant for an extended period of time. However, she reinvents herself probably every maybe 8 to 10 years. So you don't need to be like being clever and being original doesn't necessarily need to look really different, right? And it doesn't need to happen really quickly all the time. We can actually just I mean, again, I'm not in the creative space. Sarah's probably going to have a lot more to talk about in this than me. Though, if you just allow yourself to be still enough to connect with what your client is looking for, then you're going to be able to find that creativity that is right for them. And that's where I would think to be focusing on.
Yeah, I think that's a good point here as well. It's like we're talking about commercial work here as well, right? Like, clever and original. Yes, that's part of it that comes onto you, but also like getting the job done for a client sometimes doesn't have to be clever and original. It just has to solve the brief.
Mm.
Sarah?
Yeah, no, I agree with both of you, and where Tara was heading was exactly where my brain was also heading. That I think there's obviously, as they say, comparison is the thief of joy, and I think that statement is very true in the creative industry. Like everyone's always comparing themselves to everyone else in every phase of being a creative person and just a person in general. Like we're all doing it in various forms. But I think that just breaking it down project by project, client by client, and just focusing on what you're trying to do in that day rather than, what that project needs to be in months' time or tomorrow even. Like you can only do your best every single day, or you can only try your best. You can only try your best. You don't have to be your best because it's actually impossible to be your best absolutely every single day. And that's why there's such a high prevalence of burnout within the creative industry. And I think that, just working backwards from the goal. So I guess in this situation, I'd be feeling burnt out too. And as someone that has definitely felt burnout over the years, I think one, taking a minute away from the brief if things are feeling overwhelming and, it's a maze and you don't know which door to choose because you want to be clever and original and, show what you bring to the table. Take a step back from the work, maybe work on something a little bit mundane, go for a walk. If you're working from home, have a shower, whatever it might be, and then just have a bit of a reset and then come back to it and think, okay, what's the problem I'm trying to solve? And then just work backwards from that kind of perspective. And I think it is kind of normal to feel imposter syndrome. Everyone feels that. And I think, I don't know why I'm sharing this. It just came to my head. But I think this is kind of funny because, this shows for me on just a daily level, the two extremes of who I am as a human. So literally today, this all happened this morning. So on one hand, like I was nominated for this award and I was like, oh my God, wow, this is amazing. And on the other hand, I left my car lights on and my battery went flat, like both of the same human. And I had to call RACB and then I was like, I'm not going to get to the office in time for this. And then I put a post up in my neighborhood community and within 5 minutes, 5 different people like, I'll give you a jump start. So just ask for help if you need help. I think the moral of the story is, and you can be both, killing it and on one spectrum, getting an award, and on the other spectrum, forgetful and you leave your lights on and that's okay. And that's part of being a creative and that's also part of being a human.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Brilliant answers. I think it's really hard to do this stuff on your own. Like use people that are out there, use the tools that are out there. Like I've found recently using AI to like crack the back of something, not to get an original idea, but to think of all of the facets and all of the dynamics involved in something helps me get to that so much quicker. To then have better ideas off of it can really help. And also it's so much easier when you're working with somebody else and you're trying to do those ideas together, if you can, versus just sitting there. I always say, as soon as someone goes off into a room on their own to try and crack something, you can almost guarantee that they won't crack it.
Yeah.
Because you need to be able to bounce off people.
Absolutely.